Alright, so this is Far Cry. Far Cry 1. This is the game that started the whole Far Cry series. Um, I think this game's great. I think it's a great FPS game. So, Far Cry 1 came out in 2004, and around 2004, there were, I want to say, there were three major FPS games at the time, right? There was Far Cry, there was Half-Life 2, and Doom 3. And honestly, out of those big three FPS games, I think this is the best one out of all of them. What, what I like about it so much is the gunplay, um, and the open world and the graphics. Unlike Doom 3, which just had really nice graphics, but the gunplay was really bad, or Half-Life 2, which had really obtuse and boring puzzles and crappy platforming segments, this game has none of that garbage. It puts the focus on the action where it belongs. It is an action FPS game. And it is the progenitor for the modern open world FPS game. So, we talked a little bit about the game structure before. So the game is still linear. It's not a non-linear game where you can get out and you can do whatever you want in any order you want. No, there is a clear progression of doing certain things before other things. But it has an open-ended approach to it. So you have these wide open areas, and even though it is linear, you can approach a given situation in a, a number of different ways. You can explore, and you are rewarded a little bit for exploring, not too much. I'll get into that a little bit later. But really, where this game shines is just its open-ish world. So you get like this nice, beautiful outdoor area that's lush and filled with vegetation and rolling hills and mountains, and it's just so beautiful to look at. And even though it is it's not a true open world game, and even though it's a very old game, over 10 years old now, I think it still holds up, at least in terms of its large open world. Um, so now we talked a little bit about the environments, right? So this game is kind of split up into two sections, right? You get uh, you get this large open world to explore, right? And then you have a lot of indoor environments. The indoor environments are just okay. They're not terrible, but at the same time, they're nothing special either. They're not as bad as Halo. In fact, Halo is the game I would compare this game to um, the most, because it's the most similar to this game. But I think this game is so much better than that game. And while the indoor environments in Halo were really bland and repetitive, the indoor environments in this game are better, but they're still nothing special. They're very bland looking still, just not as bland. The outdoor environments are really where it shines. Now, I did mention that there is a lack of biomes while I was playing this game. Uh, it takes place on an island, and as you can see, it's a tropical island. And this level in particular, I mean, it's a little bit different than the other levels, and that it's covered in fog, but it's still the same kind of biome. You got a tropical rainforest kind of deal, and it's very beautiful. But that's really the only biome you get. You get changes in time of day. You might get some more fog, like you do in this level, but that's about it. But since it looks so good, and since there's so much to explore, um, you don't really mind. See, like right here, we gotta head to that. You get a radar in the bottom left. It tells you to head to the spot, that little dot there. But you don't have to go there right away. You can explore and look around, and you are rewarded for it. So the weapon system is you can hold 4 weapons, and the weapons are okay. Like I said, the gunplay is really solid. Shooting things and killing them, and the ragdoll physics for the enemies is really good. The ragdolls are great, and this came out in 2004, so it was even more impressive back then. However, the weapons themselves are pretty bland. I mean, they're nothing too special. But they get the job done. I don't really expect the weapons to be too flashy like they are in Doom. You get like here's an example of the M4, which is what I use the most. You get this automatic shotgun, which is all right, sniper, and this is a machine gun, light machine gun. So weapons like that. Um, but you find yourself using, kind of the same weapons over and over again. But you get 4 slots to play around with, so you can carry some more exotic weapons, like the rocket launcher if you want. Um, but yeah, you'll probably be just using kind of the same kinds of weapons. So we talked about the weapons. So let's talk about the stealth system. So you can play this in an action-oriented kind of way. So you can go guns blazing and charging into into firefights, or you can play it stealthy, and you get that those 2 bars in the bottom left, and that tells you the alert level of the enemies. But I gotta say, playing this stealthy is a complete waste of time. Uh, the main problem is that it is too hard to do it, and there aren't a lot of rewards for doing it. So because of that, I never do it, and I would be surprised if anyone bothered to do it. The problem is like you get detected so easily. Get detected, even if you take your time and you're very cautious, um, they still find you. And the way you're supposed to stealth is you're supposed to crouch like this, and you can see how slowly you move. So since you move so slowly like this, and since these levels are so big, you don't want to do it because it takes too long. Or alternatively, you lay down flat like this and you move even slower. I'm not playing the game like that. There's just no point. So since it's so much slower and so much harder, I think stealth is just garbage in this game, and I wouldn't bother using it. Also, the other thing that makes the stealth pointless is the checkpoint system. Now, the checkpoint system is a little weird, and I have mixed feelings about it. You can't autosave in this game at all. There's no manual saving. It only autosaves, and the autosaving is sporadic. Sometimes it'll save often enough, but other times the quick saves, or I should say the autosaves, are it'll take too long for the next save to come up. It's inconsistent. And the reason why that makes the stealth worse is because you might stealth and take a long time just to do one thing and then make a mistake and die, and then you have to do it all over again because there's no quick saving. So that's another reason never to use stealth. With that said, though, I actually don't have a huge problem with the autosave system and the lack of manual saving. It does add to the challenge. Um, it just could have been better. So I'm not saying like we should have had manual saving. I'm saying the autosaves should have been more frequent. Um, so the human enemies are actually pretty cool. The AI is really intelligent. They use advanced tactics. They'll run away. They'll try to flank you. And I like how their bodies react when you shoot them. You can see it right there. Ragdolls for these guys is great. It's very satisfying to shoot them. And their models are okay. What's crappy are the mutants. The mutants are awful. Um, for one thing, they're dumb. All the intelligent AI is gone. They just, do stupid stuff, run directly at you, and that's it. And they're bullet sponges, so it's not satisfying to shoot them at all. Even using rockets, the rocket launcher is pretty weak in this game, and it takes like so many rockets to actually kill a mutant. So yeah, they're just crappy enemies. So going back to the graphics in the environments are great. The graphics on the models is pretty awful. You can kind of see it here. The humans look okay for 2004, but there were better uh, character models in other games. The mutants are just terrible. Like they look comical. Um, I'm not sure how to describe them other than to say that they're just really, really stupid looking and bad. Um, so the story is just kind of whatever. Like it's nothing special. And it has terrible voice acting, but actually I didn't mind the terrible voice acting too much because it's one of those things that's so bad it's good, and I can give it a pass because, um, it's an early game, early 2000, well mid 2000s game, so bad voice acting was pretty much par for the course back then. It wasn't until much later that we got good voice acting in games. There were a few exceptions like Metal Gear Solid, but like I said, that's just the exception. So yeah, story is whatever. Um, I like the level progression. I never got stuck in this game. So like I said, you see the objective on the map and you just head towards it. And that's it. I never got stuck. It's not obtuse, and that's great. The one thing I really hate in any game is when it becomes obtuse, and it's not even like about puzzle solving or anything like that. It's just a artificial way to pad out the game to make it longer than it actually is. And FPS games would do that a lot. Um, let's see. Hey, J Marion and Forsaken. Let's see. Just doing my review. Sorry. Let's see. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about here? So, I think, that's pretty much everything. Like, there's other, like, small issues. Sometimes you can't shoot through vegetation, and that's really stupid, because, you're in a forest or in the jungle. You want to be able to shoot through uh, vegetation, but sometimes the clipping is bad, and your bullets will just bounce off of leaves and things like that instead of killing the enemy that's off in the distance. So that happens sometimes. The foliage in the vegetation won't bend around you when you move through it like it does in some other games. You might say, well, this is an early game. There weren't a lot of games that had that. But Hitman 1 did have that, and that game came out before this. But like I said, it is an early game, so I can forgive it for that. But it's still something worth pointing out. Um, Other than that, I think it's a solid game. Like this is not like the greatest FPS game of all time. Um, and I think most people today probably would find this game boring, and there are so many better FPS games out now. There's just been so much development in this genre. But for me, I think it holds up okay. And like if you want to see how the Far Cry series started, it's not a bad game to go back to and check out. I think it's great. And one of the few games from the mid 2000s, one of the few FPS games from the mid 2000s that I think still holds up. And that's all I gotta say.